Good morning, everyone. This is Frank Jordan with the World Healers Group and the ever wonderful and extensive and growing People for People broadcasting system. And we want to express that we really do appreciate the opportunity to reach out and touch so many different areas of the world and bring together a common cause of consciousness, a unification of our not different perceptions of reality and how things work in spirituality, but by the different perspectives, the perspectives of everyone, every individual, as we experience life and reality, is from a different point of observation. And although we may be looking at the same thing, our interpretive field and our matrix of understanding will be from a different point of view and perspective. So as we share and grow and acknowledge and internalize the information that we receive, it becomes a greater contribution to the group mind consciousness of everyone, the singularity of who we are and what we're here to be and do in this reality. And this ongoing reality is in constant flux and change as we grow and as conditions change and as the cosmos itself shifts to accommodate our higher frequencies of energy. And we're all aware of the tremendous shift that is going on in our world consciousness at this time. It is phenomenal. For the first time in history, we're coming into realization of how things have been set up and programmed and developed over the centuries to control and dominate us and to limit our thinking processes. And it's just incredible how things are opening up, and everyone who can should be listening or observing the internet now and the non-controlled MSM multimedia spectrums that are still trying to desperately to hold on to our consciousness and program us, because the freedom, just the freedom of consciousness that's occurring now, the opening up, the realization of there's so much moreness of our reality and what we can experience and who we can be, and the freedom. Most of us didn't even realize how controlled we were, because life just went on. We grew up, we got our educations, we got our families, got a job, fit into a slot somewhere, and that it was becoming more and more controlled all the time, where fewer and fewer people in the world were dominating and controlling more and more of the assets and the expression of consciousness that we all are. But that's opening up and being cleared away, and we're in a wonderful breadth of opportunity here now to create a new reality, a new world age that we're moving into as we move out of the old 26,000 year annular cycle of the around the center of the cosmos, the galaxy, and with that freedom comes the opportunity to bring forward new ideas, new inventions, new potential, and new self-awareness, new exposure of reality of how things work. Because religion had us so clamped in and limited in our perceptive understanding that we didn't realize that we do have the opportunity, the God-given potential of communicating directly with God, and more importantly, we're clearing away the wrong perception, the programming that God is out there and we're in here, and subjective to the religions that speak for God. And so, with this happening, it's opening up our minds, or when we step back with the greater clarity and the greater release of limitations, our freedom is expressing through our thinking. I know my meditations are expanding into levels of consciousness that were always there, but my matrix of understanding and programming, I just had not allowed it to be considered or internalized and incorporated in my own operating system. But that is happening now, and the more and more we listen, I call it listening because that's literally what it is listening to your own high self and different guides and extraterrestrials who have been trying to communicate with us for hundreds of years now, but those other forces intervened and limited what we were allowed to understand and express. And the freedom is here now to where we can express without fear of repercussions of being literally taken out or killed for expressing our thoughts. So it's a new world of opportunity. And that's what this group is all about. The world healers have been operating for some time now, and through our own clearing work, and as our understanding grew, we came into the realization of the incredible power that we have in group mind consciousness of associating our ideas and our ideals and perceptions into a force of consciousness. And this is a living, viable force when we put unify our field of intent. It has a force because we understand now that we are co-creators with the God force consciousness, with Source. And the more of us that focus on the same ideas and ideals, the more we contribute to the group mind consciousness, and the more we influence every individual out there who has free choice. We influence them, and very positively, because we never produce anything or express anything of negativity. We always focus on the positive, the uplifting encouragement of self-realization, because as people open up and clear the limitations, the self-realization becomes more and more focused through intent on positive ideals and growth of consciousness. And that's what's happening. And so we welcome this opportunity to share with you some of the things we've evolved in working with our own individual growth of consciousness and what we've shared out into the group mind consciousness. Because over the years, the 7 years that we've been on these broadcasts now, the fact that we have touched so many thousands of people who not necessarily participated in the shows themselves, but listened and internalized the information into self-realization, that force of consciousness has created a morphogenic field. I can call it through the Wolf Spirit Radio, the world healers. We are expressing positive intent to heal the world and bring into not only the self-realization, but the world realization of how powerful we are and how we are creating the new reality, the new world expression, the new world order of a higher consciousness and vibration. And this is attracted to us beings, extraterrestrials, who have evolved and gone on and have been quietly watching us for having created us some hundreds of thousands of years ago. They've been watching our progress and more or less letting us slog through the growth of consciousness that I realize now was necessary in human consciousness, because we can't just look at any individual age or idea as being the ideal. We have to, this is how human consciousness grows and how we evolve new ideas is each thing must be experienced. And this is part, I realize now, of God, the source intent of creating us and putting us into this evolving Earth reality is that we as humans, with our unique perception, our unique potentials, we are absolutely unique in that when we came here, when our souls indwelled here, we were given the opportunity, and I call it that with kind of tongue in cheek. It was somewhat imposed upon us to experience all things possible of the negative potentials, because through experiencing the negative in our growth of consciousness, we come into this realization and self-realization of what works for the betterment of humanity in general and growth of consciousness and what does not work. So we spent 26,000 years here in domination and learning and experiencing in the individualized cycles of birth and reincarnation and past lives that we've experienced here, the old souls at least. We have the old souls that have been reincarnated for thousands of years now have risen to the point of self-realization where they're ready to free themselves of domination and move into dominion. And dominion is the realization of that we are co-creators, that we are individualized aspects of the God Force consciousness, and that these individual aspects, as we contribute to the whole, is the creative force that manifests the reality for the whole. And it doesn't take everyone to do it. If enough people do it, what we do is influence the choice of those who, in their moments of now, and every moment is a moment of now, in their moments of now and in their choices, do they choose to be in dominion or do they choose to be in domination, to rely on their low selves for survival? And the low self-consciousness has been in control now for thousands of years, and that our indwelling high self, in each case, the high soul could only bring in a small part of its potential and impress it to our higher consciousness through our upper brain and chakra system, and to influence the lower self in its process and progress of growth. Because I've known for many years now that the main primary focus of our indwelling soul, 10, 20, 30% of it, depending on how each individual, depending on their clarity, how much of the high soul could be indwelling at any particular time to influence the low soul. And it's been the job of the high soul, the high self, to domesticate that animal consciousness that was inherent in the system of humanity, in the primordial primate that our genes, our intelligent genes, were injected into some 30,000 years ago in our progress and growth by our alien creators. Well, let's step back and explain that a little more for those who may not know. Around 30 to 40,000 years ago, the primordial primate had evolved to Homo sapien, which is a very intelligent animal. It did not have access to higher states of consciousness. And that's when a soul group chose to come in and indwell in the human and slowly domesticate it to be a higher and more evolved state of being, of intelligence, using that intelligence which was potential there. And this has happened through the chakra system because we've been primarily operating through our two strands of DNA that consciousness is focused in the low self, in root chakra, second chakra, third chakra, below the heart center, and as humanity evolved and each individual grew in consciousness, their set point, I call it, their set point of information and intelligence slowly grew up through the chakra system as they gained more and more intelligence. And in their incarnations, they carried through, in the soul side, more and more information that passed into higher consciousness and to shift the civilization upward. So that's been the progress that's been happening. And consciousness is an incredible thing in that it includes everything, the high consciousness as well as the low consciousness. But every moment is a moment of choice between whether that set point, that conscious active reality, the controller, which dictates the low self-survival consciousness, or heeds the promptings of high self to make right choice, and dominion. And dominion is that state of consciousness where we're looking outward and sharing and giving and loving and nurturing and bringing through the higher states of being and encouragement and intelligence for the benefit of all humanity in general, and as opposed to domination, which is focused inward in control and survival and fear and anxiety and stress and control and all the dominant stuff that we have observed in the past civilizations. So we've been learning and growing. There have always been those individuals who could reach higher and the old souls, we call them, that could carry forward from one generation to the next and learn and grow. And those old souls, many of them became the shaman and the leaders of the communities to try to raise the consciousness up out of domination into dominion. And they did this without the full realization of their high selves, their oversoul that was not indwelling, was not feeding high positive potentials of information. We were allowed only enough information to take us to the next step and growth of consciousness as we evolved. And so it's been a slow process, but we've reached the point now, generally, where our set point in the group mind consciousness is ready to move from domination into dominion. And that set point is at the heart center. Because as enough of us have achieved higher consciousness and dominion, the perception of the benefit of the whole, service to others rather than service to self, as we've learned and recognized that, we've gradually lifted the group mind consciousness to the point where it's ready for an incredible burst of consciousness into the new world reality of dominion, where there'll be no dominators and controllers. There'll be no wars. There'll be no territorial boundaries. There'll be no armies dictated by dominators. There won't be any need for that, because we'll all see the necessity of sharing what we have and what we know and what we develop for the benefit of everyone, because as we give, so shall we receive. And that is the process that we're in now. And so I've been having some interesting perceptions on this in my own meditations, because I have learned how to step into the quantum field, which is that universal field of understanding of consciousness that supplies information and potential through the innate bodies and into our which is our subconscious mind, into our supplying the chakra system, which is the hard disk of our biocomputer, because every bit of information that we achieve, that we assimilate through our sensory system, and information from our higher consciousness or intelligence is stored in the chakra system. It's not stored in the brain. The brain is just like the desktop of a computer. And so that's where we rationally can conclude A plus B equals C. And we bring information into a linear flow of consciousness that we can all share and understand and relate to. And that is a survival mechanism we had to have in our more primitive states of being, so we could function and experience and enjoy life. But now we're growing into higher frequency ranges and learning that information is primarily the source of all information is in the quantum field, and it's not linear, it's nonlinear. In the nonlinear field, everything exists in the moment of now. And every focus of consciousness is in the process of shifting from one moment of now awareness to the next. And this is a perception that I realized a long time ago. There is no such thing as time. There's only change in the static field of now. And this is a fundamental state and law of physics. All laws of physics hold in form this moment of now reality that we all contribute to and observe as our standing wave or moment of now reality. And the change is achieved through the heart center, the 0 point in the heart, that place where the indwelling spirit resides, that holds the form of the now reality of all the frequencies of energies that consciousness has created to create form and reality and intelligence and life in itself. So, but an interesting aspect it is that once a moment of now is brought into form and held in form for that instant that it is in manifestation, it resonates into what we consider to be the past. So information is never lost. It's always held in form, but we perceive with our linear mind, so we can understand it, that is the past. But the moment of the past, the energies resonate forward into the moment of now, into 0 point, and unless something occurs to change it, because this is a fundamental law of physics, that everything is nothing changes unless it's acted upon by another consciousness or a higher energy field of choice. So in this moment of now, everything is the moment of choice. All of life is experiences as a collapse of the standing wave of the moment of now, and that moment of now recreating in the next moment, and in responding to the needs of life itself, to intent, to choice, and even in our instinctive consciousness of the non-higher intelligence states of life on Earth, that energy is supplied by Earth Mind. Earth Mind is a crystalline consciousness of the surface of the Earth that holds every frequency and every vibration in the silicon dioxide, which is a gigantic computer chip on the Earth's surface. It holds that form of the passing wave of now. And this is what the Akashic records are. This is the living consciousness of Earth itself that resonates forward into the moment of now, in the moment of change, to create the next moment, responding to choice, to the needs of life as is expressed in the cycles of life. So we get to observe this great, wonderful, moving pictures of life in this moment of now and all the changes and and we don't really explore and think any deeper on how much we contribute to that, because our choices, our positive choices, is what allows us to happen. Negative choices are also recorded in Earth Mind, and negative choices in domination can become a living resonance forward, which influences life and carries things onward, and that's what we've had in the past. But now our challenge is enough of us to, in this moment of now, create the new reality that we want to experience. And another interesting aspect of this is our high self, our oversoul, our indwelling soul, which we discussed in some past shows here. Our indwelling soul has the program of what our future will be, because it is bringing forward from other civilizations and other star systems the experience of evolutionary consciousness in humanoid forms there. And it's so our soul, high soul, is already set up to create dominion, and in our free choice of the moment of opportunity that each of us have, we get to choose how that's going to express. And so it's vital that we clear out of our systems, out of our programs, the old domination forms of reality and consciousness, and not only just from our own biosystems, our own programs of life as we've experienced to this point in our lifetimes, but from our DNA, the DNA that carries forward the standard form from one generation to the next with very little change. There's only one mutation every 20,000 years in our DNA, and that's so that the form is always there. The form that's passed forward remains very unchanged, but what does change are the essences attached to the genes, the essences of experience, and that are resonating from Earth Mind and from the standing waves of the past into the moment of now. And so this is the thing that we have to deprogram, is the patterns of memory, life memory that are creating domination within us or in our world reality that's moving forward. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, is how that works. In one of our first programs, we talked about an experience I had in my early years of having a lot of isolation and a lot of time alone because I was a cattle rancher, and being a cowboy, I spent a lot of time on a horse or on a tractor out in the fields, and I having had a college education and a degree in agriculture, I was there just to be a better rancher, a better cattle rancher, and that's what I thought my life would be. But what I didn't realize at that time is that my incarnation in this lifetime was to have that period of time, that 33 years that I was on that ranch, to have the opportunity to be away from civilization, in all the chaos and turmoil of civilization. And but being alone like that, my internal dialogue, because I was scientifically oriented, I would focus my mind on some thought or some idea and explore that with my thoughts, my idea. That's how I entertain myself. And I would focus on something, and it didn't matter whether it was physics or geometry or anything else in the physical world, and I would explore out how it works. I needed to understand how things worked, and that's the biology in the living as I studied the living animals and plants and things around me, I realized that I was listening to a conversation in my mind, a dialogue that would explain how things worked. And this went on for 10 years. As I listened to how things work, I gained a deeper and deeper awareness and understanding, because it was progressively growing in intelligence. And I realize now that it was my oversoul programming me, downloading information into my system, into my conscious memory banks from the nonlinear side into the linear side. And that conversation in my mind was a translation of any information I asked for would download into my mind as a linear flow of information. And I would download that in my step back state, which I learned to do. I could download that into my biocomputer, which stored it, and I could call it up as memory anytime I needed that information. And that's exactly what's happening now. This conversation I'm having with you, and the information, particularly the new information that comes through, is a dialogue that I may have heard 50 or 60 years ago in the fields on that cattle ranch. But they would store and then drop away from my conscious mind and not be in my attention until I called it back or needed some information. So that's the potential we have in our wonderful biosystems. And I'd like to contribute that all of you have the same potential. As you're listening to me now, as you're focusing your awareness on this flow of linear information, you're downloading it into your systems. And that's a trick too, is how to take it from your conscious memory, the frontal lobe of your brain, down into the hard disk of the long-term memory. And so as we talk about these things, I'm going to give you some little tricks of understanding and of how to download information and how to recall it for later use. And this is basically how the clearing the way techniques work. You take your point of attention and be in a very relaxed, open state with nothing attracting your mental focus. You can be doing this even driving a car or working with your hands or something, but just allow yourself to go into that spaced out, step back state. Take your point of attention up into your forehead and move your point of attention, because you are your high indwelling soul. All of your consciousness is focused on your point of attention in the moment of now at any given time. So move your point of attention back in your head, out of the frontal lobes, but retaining the connection, so that as I talk, even though you're working in deeper levels of consciousness, you can retain the mental A plus B equals C process in your mind. It's like listening with part of your mind as you step back and internalizing. And what you're doing is holding this information in short-term memory in the frontal lobes of your brain. To take that into long-term memory and into earth mind, where it's permanently stored, just be in a step-back state, out of the frontal lobes, step back deep in the middle of your head, and part of your attention feels the frontal lobes of your brain, the energy there, the energy of this information that you've been accumulating is there in linear form in consciousness. To take that from short-term memory into long-term memory, simply wrap your point of awareness around that energy you feel in your brain, that pressure, that tightness, and pull that energy. It's just information. Pull that energy down to the base of your brains, and open a trap door there, just like feeling an opening, and allow that energy and information to flow down your spine, down into the hard disk of your biocomputer in the chakra system. And it'll flow to the various chakra levels where it'll associate with information and frequencies of things you've learned before. Just feel it flow down into your body. And everything I've talked about, and the things, make a point of attention to everything that I talk about from this point on or in the future will automatically store in your system. So you won't have to make a lot of effort to write it down or remember it. Once you internalize it, it's there. And you can call it back up simply by putting your point of attention back in your forehead, back in your frontal lobe of your brain, and just taking your point of attention to the topic, to whatever the subject is, and then relaxing with expectation and listening, and it'll rise. The information will rise out of the nonlinear, nonverbal form as energy back up in your brain and reconstitute back into formalized A plus B equals C, rational reasoning, memory, knowledge. See, what you've done is you've internalized information into your system and held that information. And when you bring it back again, it translates back into knowledge, linear information that you can utilize. So that's one of the first processes I learned on the ranch, is how to take things, information from short-term memory to long-term energy. And we taught our kids this when they were getting ready to go to college, and every one of them were straight A students. You never forget it once you internalized it. Okay, now let's get back into the flow again of where we were. I've got to go back in time and pick up my thread of thought now. Okay, in this transpersonal process of carrying information from one lifetime to the next, everything is stored in Earth Mind and in your DNA and in the essences of consciousness attached to DNA, is stored as packets of energy associated with the thought or subject matter of what you're dealing with or understanding. And so everything that is stored in your system as packets of energy has to rise back up to your brain, where it's translated into linear form for you to understand. The same process operates when you're asking for information that is not stored in your system. When you step back into that central region of your brain, there's another process now of reaching out for energy outside of yourself in group mind consciousness or universal consciousness. Again, step back into the center of your mind, and this time extend your point of awareness down your spine, all the way to your heart center, and know that you're operating in the high self side of consciousness, down to the heart, and then drop your awareness on down the spine to the root center and down into Earth Mind. Just feel that expansion. And what you're doing there is you're stepping into the nonlinear side, the Akashic side, the Earth Mind side, the standing wave side, where all of your past experiences are stored for many, many lifetimes. It's when you access the low self, you're accessing your DNA memory also. So when you want information from that side of yourself, from your past, we'll call it the past, it's just stored information in the moment of now. You just drop your awareness down there with the intent, the need to bring back information from the past, and then just listen. And don't really put a lot of energy, conscious mind energy into it, or you'll interfere with it. Just step back like you're daydreaming and let the information float back into your brain and reorganize into linear form. And that's how you go into past lives and access anything of the past. Now, if you are asking for information that is not stored in your own system or in Earth mind or in your past, if you're asking for new inspirational information, you do exactly the same thing, but you go in the opposite direction. Instead of going down from the center of your brain, from your pineal center, you reach upward through the crown chakra, out into the cosmos. It's what you're doing there is you're reaching into the 70% or more of your indwelling soul that is not indwelling in the body and is not available for immediate access. But it contains and is the connection to all the information out in the universe. So step back and reach up now. Just let your awareness float upward with the question in mind, and it'll come back as intuition. It'll just be a sudden burst, a flash of knowing. You kind of grasp that flash and take your point of attention back to the frontal lobes of your brain, and it'll expand that packet of energy, of knowledge, of information, or it's information at that point. It translates into linear knowledge in your brain. This is how geniuses work. They get these flashes of inspiration, they put their point of attention and their thought back on it, and rationally let it unwind, so to speak, back into form. And there are various levels of higher consciousness that you can access. You can access not only information that is outside of yourself in the group mind consciousness of Earth and other beings, but beyond that, you can actually access information into the cosmos, in alien consciousness or other dimensional realities. You can go cross-dimensional. You can go forward in time and pull information from the future. You can go backward in time, space. You can explore the universe doing this. This is how remote viewing occurs. And when you open up to a point or a place in time, and it's not time, remember, it's all now. When you open up to a time or a place, that information flows back into your mind, and you can bring it back into form. This is how I listen. I listen to my oversoul telling me about how things work. And it always comes in a sequential form. One thing adds to another. So it's a growing state of consciousness. It does not behoove you to leap into the future and try to grasp some concept that is not literally, that your own matrix of understanding can't assimilate and understand. Work with what the matrix of of consciousness, your intelligence you got now, and download everything you can or need to know. So in the progressive, this is how inventions come about. This is how the scientific method works, is opening up to the need to know and letting your mind deliver that information. And many times, this is why inventions will suddenly occur all over in several places on the earth at the same time. The engineers will suddenly have the same concept. It's because they're sharing the need to know and pulling information from the cosmos. Okay, well, that's basically how things work. But I've known this for like 30 years and there's also the clearing the way process that I evolved in that period of time of primarily healing, because that's what I was interested in. But the way the clearing the way works of deprogramming your system is this. Anything that you have available or stored in your system, any experience stored in your system or in Earth Mind or the Cosmic Records, you can access by taking the frontal lobes of your brain to the need or for the information that is the subject of what you want to know. And you don't have to put it in a process of A plus B equals C. You're pulling this knowledge back from ABC, from the packets of energy you have stored in your system. You just put your mind on say a shock or a trauma or something experienced in your past. Hold your memory, your conscious memory on that experience, and open up your awareness down through your system, just listening. I call it listening, feeling. And you'll feel where that information is stored in your biosystem. And it may be stored in many places. And so when you feel that, you can push that energy out. You can clear it out of your system by simply willing it right straight forward. And I like to use a torus, a spinning torus, clockwise torus, going out and away like a tunnel from your body, from your aura. Visualize that and just push that, whatever you feel in your system, as long as you're thinking about a problem or a shock or a trauma or abuse or a memory, anything of your past, push it right out through that torus, and you'll feel it just move out away from your system and dematerialize back into matter unorganized. That's basically how you clear your system, including your past lives, because when you ask for a subject, it'll appear as feeling not only in this moment of now, but in past moments of now. So that's how you can clear genetically with your intent. If you want to clear past lives of shocks or trauma or murders or death experiences, whatever, you could call it up and clear it that way. So that's the clearing the way process, and it really works. And what I discovered is by doing this, when I was clairsentiently tuning into someone healing them, I could clear, I could feel within them, and I could feel it through evidence within myself, I could feel the mental emotional cause of their problem. And by clearing that through their system, I could clear the mental emotional cause for their dis-ease, disharmony, whatever it is. and that would not be in their system anymore. The body would spontaneously begin to heal itself and correct the abnormality in the system. And that's basic healing. That's where it all began. So remember, you can do that for yourself as well as anyone else. Now, healers listening to me, you know how hard it is to heal yourself. That's because when you are thinking about your own problem, your own innate system ignores your conscious mind primarily, because it's only focused on the subconscious mind of dealing with managing all the millions of things that go on in your body. So it pretty much ignores your own diseases. But you can overcome that with the realization that you are thinking with your linear mind, and your innate mind is listening with the nonlinear mind. And so the way to access your nonlinear mind and correct the problem in yourself is you don't think about it linearly, A plus B equals C. You think about it as nonlinear, with feeling. You feel, and don't put it into your conscious mind as an affirmation. Just feel with your intent the thing that's disharmonious in your own system, like diabetes, for example. Just put your point of attention on your own diabetes, and in your conscious mind, you just will that to be clear. You visualize your system clear and in harmony and balance again. And the subconscious will respond to that, because it takes your very powerful linear creative force and translates it into the nonlinear force where everything actually works. So store that. You healers who can't heal yourselves, now you can. All right.
Oh, Frank, I have a perception. Okay, you're saying that A plus B plus C is a different language than ABC. And so if we are experiencing a dis-ease, we want to communicate in the language of feeling. So rather than communicate to our own innate self for the healing process, we feel our way into healing.
Yeah, Teresa, you know how when you're healing someone else, you extend your point of awareness, your consciousness to them, and you don't think, do this, do this, do this. You just send the intent for them to be healed. You visualize and feel within yourself, perhaps, the perfection in their bodies. You will the pure and natural state of their being. When you heal someone else, well, you do it the same way for yourself. Get that conscious mind out of the way and step into your healing mode when you heal yourself and direct it internally instead of externally. Thank you for correcting me on that. Or have you got that?
Yeah. I just, you kind of went through it fast, so I thought I'd.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to translate from my right brain, and sometimes I skip the punctuation marks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're coming up to the top of the hour. If we need to take a little break here, and then I'll come back and take you to the next step of this process. All right, we're back. Um, okay, I've given you a lot of information, and it's kind of overview information. There's a lot more details we can get into as we need them, but um, uh, our intent, our purpose in all of this is to learn about enough about ourselves to come into self-realization of self. As you've studied and learned and our reality out here, exterior to yourself, you come into realization of physical bodies and how things work out there in the third dimensional reality. And as you grew in consciousness and evolved, your set point began to grow and move up. And we all have this internal desire. It's an innate cellular thing to learn more about God, about higher consciousness. We all have this deep inner knowing and realization that we are part of a much greater force in consciousness. And our struggle, our growth in consciousness entails learning where we fit in that in life and how things work, and to come to self-realization of what can we do about it, and how can we control our process and our experience in life. How do we prolong life? Why do we have to die? And all of this. I was given a wonderful visualization this morning, an internalization of how this works. And I'd like to share that with you now. And it'll help you to relate to this ascension process of what we need to do to rise to higher consciousness and ultimately into higher dimensions of reality, so that we don't have to experience the negativity of the third and fourth dimension. So let's look at it this way. Let's look at our beautiful Earth and our individual lives and reality within the Earth, and look at it like humans on Earth and all the living creatures on Earth are have been sitting in a bucket of consciousness. If you just put a wooden bucket up around the Earth, and the tops being above the North Pole there, and that bucket of consciousness, as we've evolved and grown, contains are all the living essences of life itself in the Earth. But we were limited from reaching out. We could see out the sides, but we couldn't reach out the side because the bucket was there. We didn't really understand, other than scientifically, who could reach out and observe things out there. We didn't understand really that we were a part of everything out there, that it's all one whole. But if you look at Earth, and you can look at yourself as an individual with the same visualization as being in the sitting in this bucket, and the meridian of the Earth that separates the equator that separates the northern hemisphere from the southern hemisphere. If you see that within yourself also, you can look at it like the northern hemisphere, the northern half of the bucket is higher consciousness, and the lower half is lower consciousness. Well, if you run a pole down through the center of the Earth, from the North Pole to the South Pole, as being the center of consciousness, our focused reality, and you put a set point on there of where life as it's evolved to this point is expressing. Every living thing in life that has life and DNA has a set point somewhere on that shaft of that pole that allows it to experience life. It's our consciousness, in other words, our reality of life. And on the equator, there's a semi-permeable membrane that stops everything in the lower half, which is where most of life is now, from seeing into the upper half. You can just vaguely aware that it's there, but we can't really reach up into it and share the knowledge or the frequency ranges that it experiences. And that's because our set point down below there, below the equator, that semi-permeable membrane holds everything down. And that's what we've been experiencing in life this last 26,000 years, is that we've been held down, even though our high self, our oversoul, was in the northern hemisphere. You can call it our upper chakras if you want to, because that's exactly what it is. Even though our high soul has been trying to come in and influence and lift us up to a higher set point, we had to experience every step of the way up through the frequency ranges, up that pole in the southern hemisphere, in the world of domination, where life was all that counted, survival and propagation of the species. And I had a wonderful insight, too, of why we're so prompted to reproduce, and all animals and all things are, is that the low soul, in its life and experiential reality, when it dies, it pulls into a morphogenic field and waits to reincarnate in its genetic life stream of its heritage, is of its descendants. And when it comes back in when the new species or new body is being formed, it comes back in and directs that new life form with the intelligence that it brings forward of that species, whatever life form it is. And so this is why we're prompted to breed and reproduce and nurture our young, is because we know that when we go out and die and that body is lost and disintegrates, our low soul will have in the future, if we have children or a lineage of some kind, they will have children that we can reincarnate into and come back in and sustain life. And that's what holds the basic form of life. Hold the form, hold the form. That's the Devic force of consciousness, reincarnating up that pole, constantly growing and raising the frequency range all the time as it experiences. But in that cycle of life, in that reincarnation process, that semi-permeable barrier keeps us from seeing or experiencing all of the DNA potential that is in that pole, that's in the chakra system. That pole that reaches up, lifting us higher, encourages us to raise into higher consciousness. And that's the way it has been. But now that membrane is we can call it the veil if you want to, is thinning, and we've been held in this 26,000 year cycle by the galactics or the spiritual consciousnesses, so that we had to experience that. But now as humans, our set point is rapidly rising up, and is to the point to where it can now reach to membrane that we've been able to see through, and we've been able to sense what was up there waiting for us, and we're rising up into a higher point of reality above that membrane. And this is our opportunity to create a new world reality that's based and founded in the instinctive qualities and of our low selves. But now we can see beyond the top of that bucket, out into the world and out into the outer world, the cosmos, and the expanded consciousness that comes with it. And so as we learn and grow and earn and grow, I call it, and learn as we earn, we rise our set point up there. We can reach out now higher and higher and higher, and we can begin to gain understanding of what the other potentials are, the higher potentials of experientiality, as we reassemble our DNA and move up that pole, up to the point of where we can see over the edge of the bucket, and we become part of the whole cosmic humanity group again. Because that 223 genes that were implanted in us are constantly prompting us to reach higher and grow in intelligence and assimilate the rest of that DNA. And another thing, as we're moving up through there, is that there's the three dimensions of reality down below that membrane and three dimensions of reality above it. And the membrane itself could be like, and the fourth dimension above it is like a time-space portal where we have the time and opportunity to grow and assimilate knowledge and information, and to internalize what we need to do to clear and release the domination negativity out of our systems, out of our programming, out of our DNA, out of Earth Mind, and to clear Earth Mind itself. What do we have to do to move up through that diaphragm and into the higher consciousness, where we create a new world? And literally, that's exactly what's happening. We will clear and create a new world too, where our focus is through Dominion is back on the environment and sustaining and clearing the world of the domination and pollution and the corruption and the mental energetic corruption that we polluted it with for so long. And so if you have that visualization in mind and see that pole, and you're climbing up that pole, just like a fireman's pole, as you get higher and higher and higher, you get closer and closer and closer to the light. And when you ultimately get up to a point and you can assimilate the DNA and the knowledge and the information that's potential to us there, and we can reach out and see out into the cosmos, that's when the higher dimensions, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, will open up to us, and we can have communication with the extraterrestrials and the other dimensional realities again. So with that thought in mind, the question is, what do we have to do to release this third dimensional reality and move up? And what came to me this morning as I was contemplating this, and I had a wonderful meditation, was the realization that we old souls that have been around here for the many incarnations and carrying forward what information we could glean in any lifetime, we have come to the point of where we can begin to act as the teachers now, the teachers of all humanity, because with the increase in communication that we have now through the internet and other means, we can begin to share ideas and information and teach people how to do the clearing work, the necessity of deprogramming our chakra system of the essences, the negative essences that cling to us. Just well, if you can look at that, the bottom half of that bucket as a bucket of water, and it's just full of cloudy pollution. Each particle of an essence of some packet of information or knowledge that is negative, that is clinging to us and holding us down. We need to clear that pollution, and what came to me is that with the power of a unified field of consciousness working and the intent, we have to clear Earth mind as well as our operating systems of that pollution, of those essences of consciousness that are clinging to us. Remember, it isn't the genes, it isn't the DNA. It doesn't change much. It's the frequencies of these packets of energy of experiential things that we've experienced in domination that through the world of survival we clung or hung on to or allowed to be imposed on us, that's limiting us from rising in consciousness. Because as we clear, we rise. And I recognize now that for the last 35 years, after downloading the information when I was on the ranch of how to do it, I've been progressively working through my own levels of consciousness and teaching others how to do that, how to deprogram our systems. First of all, the mental emotional shocks and traumas that cause the dis-ease and discomfort in our lifetime, and how to get clarity, because that's really the objective. And I've talked about this for 30 years now, is we have to achieve clarity. And even though I didn't really understand why when I was talking about it so much, but I've been teaching about and developing the clearing the way techniques and understanding of the things that influence us in our outer reality as well as our inner reality, and what needs to be deprogrammed. So it becomes a function of, as we clear down, we rise up. And that's basically the only thing I really learned from a guru was from Sri Aurobindo, was watching his process of gaining understanding exactly like I did. Only he was a tremendous scholar. He had a perfect memory. He could flip through the pages of a book in 10 minutes and tell you everything that was in the book. And so he studied religions and physics and everything he could get his hands on. He was actually Gandhi's. He was with Gandhi and helped Gandhi to gain his self-realization. So anyway, what I learned from my brief studies of Sri Aurobindo is the necessity to clear down into the low self and clear the low self. So because we would rise proportionally in frequency range as we did that. And that's the process. You clear down to evolve upward, to rise upward. And because the veil is thinning, the membrane is thinning, we're moving up into the upper levels of the bucket now, and where the water is much cleaner and brighter, and we can begin to simulate positive things from the cosmos and from source itself as we do that. That's what one of the functionalities of the higher frequency ranges of our chakra system and DNA is when we reassemble the DNA in our system, is it gives us the ability to download directly information and to translate that information into actuality. Actuality into action, which produces function and shifts and changes and all of that. So in looking at this, I've been doing this with people for 30 years now, teaching them how to deprogram themselves. And it becomes a functionality primarily of learning how to not go into meditation and just space out and disappear in the good feeling of raising your consciousness up into those higher levels. Meditation can be used as that opportunity to step back into your own system and deprogram and clear. It has the same functionality every time you deprogram and clear stuff out of your reality with various techniques. It has the function of taking you into the higher levels of consciousness. And eventually, you pop through into that higher state of consciousness, and your whole reality and world changes. We discussed this before with the other members of the World Healers Group, of feeling the clarity of being in the high state of consciousness where you become the observer of yourself, and through yourself you can relate to the problems and dysfunctionality of everyone out there, because it's all very similar. It may be different dynamics, but it's similar form. So
Frank,
yeah.
Could you lead us all into what you were describing about that clearing? And also, I know Angel wanted to bring forward some information. So would you lead us in a how-to in that clearing? Also, there's someone has written a question we need to get to as well.
Okay. Yeah, Tim Goodsall asked the question of the upcoming full blood moon and lunar eclipse and all of that, and is it worth meditating with? When you're doing things of that nature, of tuning into the galactic influences going on, that just gives you the opportunity to have clarity and the assistance of other dimensional beings and realities to do this clearing work I'm talking about. It isn't that it happens for you. It gives you the opportunity to clear a lot of the clutter and dynamics and dross away from the pool you indwell. And so you have the opportunity to accelerate your stages of consciousness. And so, yeah, take advantage of every opportunity you get. It's because those influences themselves will be stirring things up. But the whole point of self-realization here is that you have to do it yourself. It is being said that the whole world is going through this shift in consciousness, and we're all going to spontaneously, when enough of us reach the 100th monkey stage, we're going to spontaneously lift everyone else up through that semi-permeable membrane up into the light. It ain't going to happen, folks, because every individual is responsible for his own growth of consciousness. And those who don't get opportunity or to take the opportunity to learn how things work and apply to themselves are not going to make it through that membrane and out into the light. As I understand it now, there'll be a division of a separation of consciousness. And I don't fully want to get into that because I don't understand yet how that's going to work. But the few innovators, the old souls that are expressing what I'm talking about now and are actually achieving that state of consciousness. And I've achieved it to a large degree, although I still know that there's a lot of downloading and information I need yet to fully comprehend the higher reality. But yeah, Tim, take every opportunity you can to work on yourself. And I'm going to lead you now into a kind of a generalized meditation. Let's see, let's step back here and see where we want to go with this. Where I'll show you how to clear some major patterns and things that are programmed into you that and everyone that suppresses our higher consciousness. So we'll use the clearing the way process. It's very basic. It's very simple. And we'll use the clearing the way meditation or get very comfortable and relaxed. Take your point of attention up into your forehead. And that's where your attention is now, just simply by listening to me. That's move your point of attention back a step in your head. Now, you heard me mention that the way to clear things, one way is with a torus, just by holding your point of attention on the subject you want to clear. And when the body is so linear, the mind, the system so linear, that when you're thinking about something, the only thing you can feel in your body is where that information is stored and the patterns of the information itself. And that allows you the opportunity to wrap your awareness around the feeling and push the feeling, take the energy off of the program so it cannot express in your system any longer, and take it out through a torus, a spinning torus away from you. That takes it back into matter unorganized. So we're going to do that. Point of attention in the forehead and step back. Just move back out of the frontal lobes of the brain, out of your linear thinking processes, back into your feeling processes, which takes you into the non-linear aspect of your mind. And the first thing we're going to work with is right behind your third eye, right, sitting right in the channels of the third eye back to the pineal, is a huge program that's patterned there by religions. That religion that says you do not, that you're a sinner, that you're born with mortal sin, and the only way you can get through that and get to heaven and God is through this church or religion. Now, we're going to, in the past, we've used the technique of having you go to the religion and deprogram yourself from it. But it just occurred to me that we're going to, with our higher unified field here now, we're going to use the clearing away process. Step back and feel the pattern within yourself of whatever religion in past lives or this lifetime or any association you've had with any organized religion. Now, just wrap your awareness around that religion and with intent, move it back to the source of that consciousness. Just move it out of yourself. I'm moving it to the left. I'm moving the whole Catholic religion out the left temple, kind of forward through a torus, back to Rome. Because our intent is strong enough now that we can do this, and we don't need the permission of the church to do it. Because we're taking back our own personal power, our own right to communicate directly with God. Now you feel a lightning process going on in your head as you do this. And you may feel things clear out of your body as you do it also. As long as you focus on releasing the religion, all organized religions in this lifetime or past lifetimes. And let's reach out now, use our unified field to reach out into the general population of consciousness. That's what I want to do. Gather up all religions, just condense them down, just like, and hold your hands out and hold all religions between your hands and just condense down all religions, all influences, down to a tiny ball and throw it out into the cosmos. And with that, our intent is that every person in the world who desires freedom can now achieve it. Now, I'm glad we did that. That was a huge one. Now, take your awareness back deeper. Well, first close off to the religions. Now step back deeper to the pineal area. Extend your awareness down the spine to the 0 point in the heart and just touch in with source, indwelling spirit there. That's where you get the power. That's where you get the co-creative intent. Now move on down the spine to the root chakra, down into earth mind. Now in earth mind, as long as we're here, we want to clear the same process of willing earth mind to clear and release all religious blocks or inhibitions or programming in every human on earth and create a torus right down into the center of the earth, spinning down, sucking all organized religion down into the center of the earth. Visualize it, feel it through, flowing through your system as you're pulling the group mind consciousness, freeing humanity. Now, we're not imposing it on anyone. Anyone who chooses to hang on to the religion and experience life that way for their own karma or own growth can do so. But what we're doing is giving them the opportunity to express their free will and release their religious beliefs. Perfect.
It's releasing the guilt.
Yes. See how much energy there is there? That's incredible. It's a horrendous force in earth mind and around the world. Clear it all. Float down into the earth where it's dematerialized, from energy organized back into energy unorganized. Now release it, close it. Now just notice in yourself a tremendous amount of clarity just from that one act. Now take your awareness back deep into the center of your head again. Extend it down through your system into the patterning and programming within your own system. And Catherine, you hit it right on the head. The first thing we want to clear, the first primary block that holds us in 3D is guilt. Now this is guilt of imposed guilt by the religions. Take that right down into the earth also. The feeling that the programming that you're guilty or a sinner, clear that out of your entire system. Down the spine and out into the earth. And do it forever. Human on earth. Close to that. Thank you. Now you'll notice your subconscious is becoming familiar with what you're doing, and it wants to cooperate with you. This is the innate system that's actually doing the work here. Now, take your awareness within again. We want to focus on your own guilts. Everyone has a secret life. It has secret things they've done that they've been ashamed of or felt guilty for. Feel, bring up within your system and feel in your body any guilt that you have for any cause, anything that you did for another. And if you did harm to another, you have karma. So your intent is to forgive yourself by realizing that it does no benefit to carry guilt, that you're going to replace guilt with love. Clear the guilt of any thing that you did in any way to others or to yourself. Down the spine, into the earth. And give every human on earth the opportunity to do the same thing. Now close to that. Now, within yourself, bring up every untruth, lies, things you may have done that hurt others or influenced others. Oh, you feel that around your heart center and up in your throat. Lies of communication in any form. The intent to harm or mislead. Pour it down the spine and out. Now let go without lies of consciousness, where you try to influence others in any manner or any form to any thinking other than their own. And these are all domination things we're clearing. If you tried to dominate others with mistruths or lies, misinformation, float out of your system. These are major, major primary blocks to your ascension of consciousness. And do it for everyone on earth. Perfect. Oh, feel yourself breathe more deeply from the freedom that you're gaining and clarity. Now, look at your education. Everything you've ever learned pertaining to history or society or how to control or manipulate people or influence the thought of others. But release everything you've ever learned in education from other sources down into the earth. And free all the educational systems on earth of mistruths and lies and programming. Just let it flow away, everything you've ever learned, everything that's stored in earth mind. Clear it away, clear it away, clear it away. Now, folks, this is incredibly important because what you're doing is clearing the way for the consciousness to split, so that those who want to hold on to those old things can and will. But all of those who want to be freed of all those dominating influences of education can be freed, and we can move into the higher state of consciousness. Perfect. Now we're going to clear the domination of the financial system as it was created. Look at the financial system of the world and the control by a few people, the Rothschilds and others, the banking system, and spin all that programming energy down into the earth, freeing our reality so we can exist without it, letting us move and ascend up the chakra system into higher consciousness, moving our set point upward so we're not dependent in any way on the dominating forces of money and finances. Realizing that in the new system we create, there will need to be a system of commerce, but it'll be fair and it'll be created in dominion and it'll operate without domination. Perfect. Now shift your attention to the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry and clear the dependency of the world on pharmaceuticals, because in the higher dimensions we are evolving into, they won't be needed. There will be no illness to float all the way out of this morphogenic field of new dimensional reality that we're creating. Now take with it the medical profession itself as it's moved into a domination, a hierarchy of domination focused on money rather than love. Now close that, come back within yourself and ask to focus, to bring up any patterns or programs of greed of accumulating more than your needs or controlling others through possessions. Clear it out down the spine and out. Clearing earth mind. Now close to that. Now we're in low self here. It's where most of this is coming from. We want to clear lust, sexual domination, sexual aberrations, sexual addictions, and with that, we want to clear the satanic pedophilia and the satanic cults themselves. Now, all of these things we're creating will continue to flow through our unified field, and we extend that our unified consciousness out not only through the world of communications, but through the entire metaphysical field of all positive thinkers, now we could go on with this, but we will continue this in our next programs. So we close our fields, and now you know the major forces of consciousness, many of them, but you should continue to work on and clear yourself, realizing that as you clear yourself, your unified field with others is helping them to clear also. And what we're doing is creating this split in the consciousness so that those who want to continue experiencing or need to continue it because of their karma or their need to experience, we're creating the separatism. As we move to the right, we move into a world and a hemisphere to the right. And we feel ourselves rising, our set point rising up the central pole, through the meridians, into the heart and above the heart center, up into the clarity, and feel the clarity of the higher unified field of the indwelling high self of all humanity. That field does exist, and everyone can move into it with desire and will, and by releasing any limitation, pattern, or form. And so we'll close with that, knowing that you will continue the work, and we will continue with every broadcast we do. All right, Angel, would you like to kick in here and contribute your piece?
Open your mic, Angel, please.
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead, Angel.
No, this is too late now because it's going to take a long time.
I think that we need to sort of talk about what we just did. What a glorious, glorious, what word do I want to use? It's almost like we did a ceremony, and how beautiful it was in how we incorporated everything. And I hope that people and individuals realize that what keeps you back from stepping forward in what we did is basically just fear of the unknown, the fear of change. But change is happening whether we want it or not. It's like when you're a youngster and your body grows and changes and you don't want it to, but it's doing it anyway because that's what occurs. And that's what this is, just an occurrence of change. And to do it in the most glorious fashion is what every soul dreams of doing. And being afraid of it it's not something to be shameful of, but find the courage to move forward and just to realize that we all just get to do and be what we are fabulously.
We're stripping away the essences of the pollution of the 3D of domination. And our purity is there within. Our DNA is pure and clear. It's the essences attached to it, the thought forms, the programs, the patterning, the experiences, the memories, the earth mind. We got to let it all go. And we are.
Well, I know you spoke a bit of the veil being lifted, and people have heard that terminology before, the veil, of being able to see through the veil being lifted. And yesterday on my afternoon walk, I was looking at the blue sky and I realized that there is this white haze. And I realized, oh my goodness, that's what they're spraying up there, is they're spraying a veil so that we can't see clearly. And that veil affects every aspect of our physical body and so forth. So, know that your heart knows, everyone, that we all are being shown ways to lift our own veil, to get through, to go and do and be joyfully, I hope.
Well, I like the analogy of moving through the semi-permeable membrane, and as you move through, it strips away and holds back all the pollution so that our clarity and our purity can rise through it and above it and into this northern hemisphere or the higher hemisphere, the higher chakras in our unified field of intent. Angel, we have a few minutes left here. Would you like to wrap it up for us?
Remember that as you clear, you need to fill up with unconditional love everything that you clear, because the universe doesn't like emptiness. So as you clear, you need to fill up with gratitude, unconditional love, and bring up elevated emotion. Ignite your quantum heart in your quantum field, and remember that you can expand for the whole universe. Thank you.
Teresa?
As the Tao Masters say, smile into the spaces that you've created. Bring the joy, love, happiness, and gratitude into those spaces. And bring it into the spaces between the spaces. Give the energy back to Mother Earth to turn into compost so that she can grow plants all over the world and bring life back and cycle with us. So any energies that we removed are non-beneficial. They are, and we bring back in energies that are for the best and highest good of all creation. Thank you for being on this journey with us today. Thank you.
Catherine?
This is what I say at the end of all of my prayers. Love, have mercy. Love, have mercy. Love, have mercy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, Gaz, we've wrapped it up. Thank you so much for your participation and support. And isn't it interesting the shift you can feel in the consciousness? And so it is.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Now on the